In the top stories, Prime Minister's press conference slated for later today. Farmers in Jamaica fearful of COVID-19 and UK locks down 66 million people to slow spread of coronavirus. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday newscast. Today is Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. I'm your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Nationally, Prime Minister Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris will update citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis on matters of national interest when he hosts his monthly press conference later today. The press conference will be held from 3 p.m. in the lower level conference room of the Ocean Terrace Inn. It will be broadcast live on national media and attended by the press corps, who will ask questions for the benefit of the listening and viewing public. The press conference will also be carried live by ZIZ Radio 96 FM, TV Channel 5, and online at www.ZIZOnline.com. Meanwhile, Prime Minister and Minister of National Security Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris, in a televised national address on March 22nd, said that students and citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis studying abroad are free to return home, given that flights are available to the Robert L. Batcher International Airport and that the airport remains open. Prime Minister Harris's words come as the COVID-19 or novel coronavirus 19 pandemic is spreading rapidly around the world, and more countries are placing restrictions on travel and movement in general to curtail the spread of the pandemic.
Our students and citizens, to the extent our airports remain open and flights are available, can return home. However, as a health precaution, they will be subject to a 14-day quarantine period on arrival.
The Prime Minister encouraged those students who will not be returning home to comply with issued advisories in their area.
All members of our St. Kitts and Nevis community will be impacted by the pandemic. Our hearts and minds are with our students studying abroad and their families. We encourage them to comply with all health and other advisories in the areas in which they live. We encourage them to take precautions to keep themselves safe. Avoid unnecessary travel at this time. Avoid panic and, of course, remain calm.
Dr. Harris said, quote, "In the event of emergencies, our foreign missions stand ready to assist," end quote. The Prime Minister said further details can be accessed at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In other news, service from American Airlines flight AA318 has been suspended as of Monday, March 23, 2020. The AA flight usually travels from the Robert L. Batcher International Airport to Miami International daily, but remains suspended until Tuesday, March 31, 2020. The daily flight will resume service on Wednesday, April 1, 2020. Earlier this month, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority revealed that the SKB to MIA flights 1466 and 1266, as well as SKB to JFK Wednesday flight 2210, will be suspended from April 4th to June 4th. The Saturday DFW or Dallas to SKB flight will also be suspended from May 23rd to August 3rd. The flight changes are due to the reduction in flights worldwide following the spread of the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. On the regional scene, farmers in Jamaica are complaining of the economical impact that the spread of the coronavirus is causing, noting that the production is affected because workers are fearful of going to work. Here's more.
Just about 18 acres of Scotch bonnet peppers and onions, but hardly anyone to tend to them. Before COVID-19, things were looking prosperous for this Bernard Lodge farmer. But Terry Allijon says since the virus reached Jamaica, productivity on his farm has slowed.
We have a couple of our staff, so but our contract workers, they are not turning up for work. They are a bit scared, being as they have to be coming from far, so they are afraid of the transportation and whatever the government is saying to them that we can't. And then we have to be breaking down our our crowd.
He says it's created a hefty financial burden, and even though the current produce is enough for up to 3 months, beyond that,
we need a continual of producing. So right now, with this COVID-19, it's going to put a gap into it that we don't want. And then, we spend a lot of money to continue. We have produced here now, which was last us, but we still have to continue spending money to keep this produce rotating.
State Minister for Agriculture Floyd Green says while he understands the fear, he's encouraging farmers to take the recommended precautions and go out to farm.
Now is an opportunity for our farmers to really help feed Jamaica. Clearly, with what is happening on the world market, a lot of imports will be not able to get in, and as such, people will be looking to our farmers. We know they have the capacity, we know they have the inputs, so we can farm more during this time.
Minister Green adds that the local food supply should be more than enough.
We have done our own research, riders out in the field, and we've looked at every product area. We've looked at meat, we've looked at fruits, we've looked at vegetables, and in fact, in some product areas, we have an oversupply, because as you can imagine, the downturn in the hospitality sector has caused even more items to be on the market. So I don't want anybody to worry about whether we will have enough. We will have enough, and more than that, we have inputs. So after this 3 months period, we have checked with all our input suppliers. We have enough seeds, we have enough fertilizer, we have enough chemicals to last us well into the end of the year.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
On the international scene, the United Kingdom's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has ordered all citizens to remain at home for at least 3 weeks to stop the coronavirus pandemic from spreading further. Here's more.
It was an announcement no British Prime Minister has made since the Second World War. Unprecedented restrictions on people's way of life.
You must stay at home, because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households. That is why people will only be allowed to leave their home for the following very limited purposes. Shopping for basic necessities as infrequently as possible. One form of exercise a day, for example, a run, walk or cycle, alone or with members of your household. Any medical need to provide care or to help a vulnerable person, and travelling to and from work, but only where this is absolutely necessary and cannot be done from home.
Following the example of France, Germany, Spain and Italy, police will now have the power to issue fines and enforce closures. Britain's been watching developments in mainland Europe with growing unease. But while London landmarks are deserted, this was the scene on the city's underground on Monday. The advice is clear, and so are the risks. But crowds are still gathering at this East London market. While there's still demand, stallholders say they're left with little choice but to carry on selling, and shoppers keep on buying. The local authorities are painting footprints on the tarmac to help people maintain physical distance. But like many of the guidelines, nobody's paying any attention. This is one of the cheapest places in the area to buy food. Shutting it down could have dire consequences on people's lives and livelihoods. It is a difficult decision to make, but every infected person runs the risk of infecting several others. The domino effect could be catastrophic. In Italy's Lombardy region, cemeteries are struggling to keep up with the dead. On Monday, the death toll climbed to more than 6,000. But for the second straight day, the number of dead edged down and the rate of infection slowed. It's too early to say whether Italy's turned the tide on COVID-19, but the figures offer some hope that government measures are working. A day after Italy shut down all non-essential economic activity, now more restrictions, a ban on all internal travel. The virus has distorted everyday life. Buying food can take many hours. The streets of the German capital Berlin are also empty, and the country's Chancellor Angela Merkel forced to quarantine. But there's a glimmer of hope. New data suggests the spread of the virus is slowing. Despite a high infection rate, there are relatively few deaths in Germany. The country was quick to introduce widespread virus testing.
Und heute 0 Uhr hatten wir
One core element is the ability to keep track of contacts. The quarantine of contacts are kept for 14 days, and the isolation of infected people. These measures must be kept up and strictly adhered to for the coming weeks and months. They are important and will remain important.
2 weeks into its lockdown, Spain is now considering extending it further. The virus has swept through dozens of nursing homes. Many of the residents didn't stand a chance. Soldiers are now battling to contain the spread. Country after country, governments are controlling the lives of citizens like never before in an effort to save lives. The coronavirus has pushed a continent into confinement. Niamh Barker, Al Jazeera, London.
The closure of many non-essential businesses in Australia has led to an estimated 1 million people losing their jobs overnight. More in this report.
This is now the new normal in Australia's biggest city: locked up shops, empty restaurants and bare streets. Businesses that are usually filled with paying customers are closed or near empty as more people self-isolate and cities go into lockdown. The closure of many non-essential businesses in Australia, like pubs and cinemas, led to an estimated 1 million people losing their jobs overnight. And it's small and medium-sized businesses that are bearing the brunt of this economic crisis. Stephen Speed runs Sydney's oldest pub, which is now closed. He's just laid off 45 workers and doesn't know how he'll pay the bills without more government intervention.
Your outgoings are still, are still there. I mean, we're still paying for our power. We've got to keep our refrigeration running. We've had to pay, obviously staff out as well.
Long queues of newly jobless people are snaking around city blocks, all facing an uncertain future and in need of financial help.
In terms of finances, the rug has been literally pulled out from underneath us.
For somebody like me, there is no possibility of any work coming forward until productions start up again.
While there's a lot of uncertainty around how long this health crisis will last, the big question is whether small businesses will be able to weather the storm until then, especially with a global recession now a very real prospect. Governments across the world are targeting small businesses with hundreds of billions of dollars in loans, tax breaks and regulatory relief. But many are questioning whether the measures will be enough to soften the blow, especially with experts predicting unemployment rates of well over 10% in developed nations.
We're expecting this shock to manifest itself in unemployment going well through 10%, a typical level of a modern recession, towards 20% very quickly. That is mass unemployment, the likes of which we haven't seen since the Great Depression.
As the number of coronavirus cases grows, so too will the shutdowns and social distancing measures. Right now, many of those out of work are finding it hard to know what will happen next. Nicola Gage, Al Jazeera, Sydney.
And now for the weather. Present weather is cloudy. A moderate breeze of 18 miles per hour is blowing from the east-northeast. Today's temperature will peak at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are reaching 4 to 6 feet. A small craft caution is in effect mainly for the eastern side of the island. Expect mostly cloudy skies with a high chance of showers today and cloudy conditions with a moderate chance of showers tonight. Sunset today will be at 6:22 p.m. and the sun is expected to rise tomorrow at 6:10 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.